You probably heard, right? The housing market is going to crash.
Oh no!
Well, I'm sorry to say it, but we just don't see that happening. And in this video, I'm gonna give you the top 5 reasons why I think, and some other people think, why the real estate market is not going to crash. And we're gonna see house prices start to increase over the next 6 to 12 months. So stay tuned because we're gonna get after it right now. I know what you're thinking, Jonathan, you're probably just crazy, right? Yes, these house prices do have to come down, Jonathan. There's no way that they can sustain. We're seeing the 2007, 2008, 2009 all over again, Jonathan. What are you gonna tell us that's gonna change? Well, I'm gonna give you the top 5 reasons again why I think that prices are not going to come down. And I'm also gonna give you some information and some statistics that you're probably not aware of, and to show you that, hey, if you didn't know, last year we actually had a 17% decrease on homes nationwide. So if you didn't buy during the dip, well, you missed out because house prices are about to go back up. Now, why do I think house prices are gonna go back up, right? All we're seeing is these high inflation, interest rates are going, beyond to the roof, and we're hitting an all-time high with interest rates, and it's just unaffordable, right? Well, if you're watching Shark Tank and you know who Barbara Corcoran is, right? Barbara Corcoran, she's a real estate mogul. She owns a bunch of real estate. She's brokered a bunch of real estate deals, and she knows the same thing that we know, right? In the real estate industry. As soon as interest rates go down, guess what's going to happen? All the people that's been waiting for the house prices to come down are gonna get out of those sidelines, get out of their car, and get out of that home that they're currently in, and they're gonna start just coming in and buying all the inventory. Well, that's me leading into number 1 reason why I don't think it's going to go down. Now, number 1 is we have a very little supply and a very high demand. Well, basic economics says that, hey, if there's a, low supply but high demand, you can drive prices up, right? Vice versa. If there's high supply and low demand, being 2008, right, prices are gonna go down. So that's one of the biggest reasons and the biggest differences between now and 2008. Back in 2008, we had 10, 11 months of inventory of homes for sale at any given time. Today, we have 1 to 2 months depending of your market, right? Depending on where you live, we have 1 to 2 months of inventory. A neutral market tends to have 4 to 6 months of inventory of homes on the market at any given time. So you got to know that there's a big supply and demand issue currently going on that keeps driving these house prices to go up. So that is going to cover number 1. Now let's move on to number 2. Now, number 2 is interest rates. Well, just know this, interest rates right now are, a little bit abnormal, right? We're seeing interest rates fluctuate in the past couple of months anywhere from 6 to 7.5%, which is extremely high with these prices, right? Well, it's rough right now, and I'm not gonna front to you guys. I'm not trying to lie to you to say that, yeah, these interest rates, I'm hoping that they can impact home prices, because I myself wanted to see house prices go down because I just bought a house 3 months ago. I was hoping I was gonna get a steal, and little behold, I got an okay deal, right? But we did see house prices decrease last year as interest rates were going up, right? The market was just adjusting, and that's what it does. When things change, so does the market. So we saw house prices dip a little bit of last year, especially towards the end of the year when rates were creeping up to 8%. There was not a lot of people buying houses, and you saw home prices were dropping left and right? Well, picking up in January of 2023, something happened where, interest rates got in the 5s, right? Got in the 5% interest rate. And real estate usually tends to be behind about 3 weeks to 6 weeks. That's how much of a lag it usually has when something does happen. Well, back in January, we saw rates drop just a little bit, and then we saw an influx of people jump back into their car to get homes. So, I mean, we know this, when rates go down, people come out, right? And when people come out and they start buying homes, when we already have a lack of inventory, guess what's gonna happen? 2020, 21, right? And partially 22, home prices were just jumping. They were just going because of the lack of supply and demand, and because interest rates at that time were at an all-time low. I mean, anybody and their mom could have afforded a home with a 2.25 interest rate. That just makes sense, right? If you had a 2.25 interest rate, and we know that nationwide appreciation tends to be at 3% interest rate at the conservative side, 3% nationwide is what appreciation is on a house. And if you had a 2.25, man, you're just making money on your house, because at that point you're basically getting the house for free. Well, essentially interest free, right? So that's one of the cool features, you know, about that house, is if you got that 2.25, you're not moving. You're staying exactly where you are. Well, again, with the lack of inventory, right, and where interest rates are today, we're gonna see those home prices to continue to go up once these rates go down. So that's something to consider, as interest rates do definitely play a part into this. Now, I'm going to say this, if interest rates continue to stay the same, we might see some stale movement in the housing market, because again, it is a little bit harder to afford houses at these interest rates. That's just bottom line, being plain truthful to you, right? And so that is number 2. I definitely want to move on to number 3. Now, I just said it right in number 2. Now this is number 3, right? I just said interest rates, and I just said supply and demand, and now I'm gonna bring up is 50% of homeowners in America right now have an interest rate below 4%. 4%, 50+% of Americans have that interest rate, right? Given that 50% of Americans have an interest rate lower than 4%, do you think it would make sense for them to move, to sell their home, and to leave in order to jump into another home at 7% interest rate? It's not going to happen. So the reason that, hey, it's not going to happen is because people are a little bit smarter than that. And that's partially another reason why we have a very low supply issue, is because none of these people want to move because they have a great interest rate. So if you have a great interest rate, there's no need to make a move, because your monthly is already low as it is. And like I just said, appreciation is usually anywhere from 3 to 4% nationwide, conservatively, on a yearly basis. So if you have something below a 3%, you're banking on your house. It's basically, you're borrowing free money at that point. And if you don't understand the math behind that, I can definitely explain it in a later video, right? So 50% of Americans, again, have an interest rate below 4%, so they're not going anywhere, right? Now, moving on to number 4. Now, number 4, these are all, again, statistics and numbers that are based off National Association of Realtor numbers, okay? Now, number 4 is 33.6% of Americans have 50% or more equity on their current home. If a homeowner has 50% or more home equity in their home, and they have a low interest rate and there's no supply out there, why would they move? It just makes no sense for a lot of the homeowners to actually leave their actual house. I mean, the reasons why people are moving is because they actually have to move. They don't have a choice. So everybody else, they're staying put exactly where they are because they're already banking on their appreciation on their house. They already have a sweet interest rate, and they know that, hey, home, supply is just not there, right? So that is another major issue. So that's number 4. Moving on to number 5. Number 5, and now this is a cool one, right? 30% of homeowners in America actually have no mortgage. Their home is owned free and clear. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that, hey, these people are sitting pretty. They don't want to move because they have no payments. Well, if they have no payments, why would they move into something that is going to cost them an arm and a leg with a high interest rate, right? A lot of these things are starting to make sense to you, I hope, right? Is that we're just not seeing home prices go up. And like Barbara Cochran said, right, once interest rates go down and we have this big supply and demand issue, house prices are gonna go up. Now, she is like a multi-hundred million billionaire person out there with a very high status, and she obviously knows a thing or two. She has a successful career and she knows a lot about real estate, right? These are the things that we kind of look at as real estate professionals as, hey, you know, I want to be realistic, and, you know, I want to tell you, as much as I want to see house prices come down, I don't see house prices coming down in the near future. So that right there is really the top 5 reasons why I just do not see home prices going down in the near future, right? Again, with supply and demand issues, with interest rates being where they are, with, you know, all of these homeowners having 50% or more home equity on their home, with over 25% of Americans owning their home free and clear. I mean, it just kind of, it doesn't really add up as much. Now, 2008, it was completely different. Now, if you want me to give you a 6th one, I definitely can. This is about lending. Back in 2008, if you were trying to buy a home, about 2006, 7, 8, right? If you were trying to buy a home, if you could fog a mirror, which means that you could breathe, you can get into a home. Now, it's completely different. The lending practices are extremely more stricter than they were back in 12, 15 years ago. They are just extremely strict. So if you were back then, again, anyone and their mom could try to get a house, right? Today, it's not the same. There's a lot more lending practices going on where they know that, hey, the average credit score back then was in the low 600s. The average credit score now for somebody that's buying a home is in the low 700s. So yes, there's definitely a lot more scrutiny when it comes to actually borrowing money for a house. And so I can just go on, but that's going to cover the top 5 reasons why I personally don't think house prices are going to go down. But you might have a different opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So you can definitely comment down below. And thank you for watching Living in South California.